So, you want to grow your own potatoes, but you don't have that much space. Not a problem. We've experimented with a number of different methods for growing potatoes, and by far, the easiest, the least laborious, and most productive way to grow potatoes that we have found is using containers or buckets. You'll need three main things: a large container, some good soil, and some potatoes to start with. The number of potatoes you can grow is going to be dependent on the size of the containers that you're using. In this case, I'm using a couple of 25, 30 liter containers, or about 6 to 8 US gallons in size. Using larger containers will allow you to put more plants per container, so feel free to upsize the containers you might want to use. A 5-gallon bucket is about the smallest size container that you would want to use for growing potatoes using this method. Whatever container you decide to use, make sure it has good drainage. Drill holes in the bottom of the container, if there aren't any. Potatoes are heavy feeders, so a good amount of aged compost that is rich in organic matter is going to provide the necessary nutrients for the plants, as well as allowing drainage, but still maintaining that moisture that the plants want. Potato tubers are prone to rotting if the soil becomes too saturated, so using a well-draining, very fluffy, light, loamy mixture is key to using this method. Your growing medium should be a mixture of compost and gardening soil. Use something that's loose and loamy, provides good drainage, and avoid anything that is going to compact or harden in the containers. For your seed potatoes, firstly, a lot of folks wonder whether or not you can use grocery store potatoes to grow your own crop. The short answer is yes, you definitely can. If you choose to do this, you're best off to look for organic potatoes. Conventional potatoes are typically treated with sprout-inhibiting chemicals and hormones, which prevent the eyes from sprouting out. With small seed potatoes, you can just plant the whole thing in the soil. Larger potatoes can be cut into smaller sections, making sure to keep an eye or two on each part. You may want to cure your cut sections of potatoes, allowing the cut side to dry for a few days before planting. Not entirely necessary, but this can help reduce the chances of your seed potatoes rotting before they begin to grow. Place your seed potatoes into the container. Make sure to plant with the cut side down, or with whole potatoes, plant with as many eyes facing up as possible. Once you've placed your potatoes into the container, cover them with a few more inches of your growing medium. You'll be able to add a little more growing medium in the coming days and weeks as the potatoes begin to sprout and grow. I'm planting 2 small potatoes, or pieces of potatoes, in each of these 2 buckets. Larger containers, you can plant up to 6 or 8 pieces per container. Throughout the growing season, try to keep your containers evenly moist to reduce stress on the plants. The best way to check your containers for moisture is to gently dig your fingers into the soil to a depth of a few inches. If it's dry, water the containers. A gallon or 2 of water should be enough water without oversaturating the soil. The larger containers will be able to use a little more water. During very hot or windy weather, check your containers often, as they tend to dry out much quicker under these conditions. Sometimes I'm checking the containers 2 or 3 times a day. Throughout the season, the plants will continue to grow, and you can harvest your potatoes whenever you like. The longer you let them grow, the larger and more potatoes you will harvest from each container. Eventually, your potato plants will flower. After the plants have flowered, the foliage will begin to die back, turning brown. This is the best time to harvest for maximum yield and maximum potato size. When harvest time arrives, dump your buckets out and separate the potatoes from the growing medium. This is a harvest of almost 13 pounds of potatoes out of these 2 containers. Minimal work and a great return from just 4 potatoes that were originally planted just a few months ago. At this point, you can separate out any bad potatoes from the bunch. Look for cuts, bruises, small rotting areas, anything like that. Allow the good potatoes to cure for a few days in a dark, well-ventilated area. This will help toughen up the skins on the potatoes for storage. Avoid allowing any light whatsoever to reach your potatoes during this curing period. Otherwise, you'll risk the potatoes turning green, which can be toxic. Now, you can store your potatoes using your preferred method.